This episode of Movie Night Autopsy is brought to you by cyberpunks.com. High-tech lowlifes who write about new technology, robots, internet politics, and the artificial intelligence singularity that will one day rule us all. They're nice enough to sponsor this review, so they definitely know a good thing when they see it. If you want to learn more, just visit cyberpunks.com, cyberpunks.com. All right, let's cue that spooky, spooky funk. Hey, welcome back to another fantastic episode of Movie Night Autopsy. I'm Chad.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Aaron.
And today is a fantastic episode. We've gotten together. We're doing a little special one for this one. It's not usually what we do, but it's pretty special. But we've gathered together today to eat some food, have a few drinks, celebrate film, and have cultural talk and some bouts. So just to get right into it, film. I'm not passing it up. I'm going to get right into it. Has everyone calmed down from Akira? It's a long pause for an answer to that.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and give the unexpected answer of no. I have not
Oh yeah, that's never happened before.
calmed down from
Well, we
Akira.
watched it like 2 days ago.
Yeah. It was my first watch.
My first watch.
And Asher and Grace were both there. It was their first watch as well.
It's really this is Aaron's gig, man. He's like the expert as far as we know.
Yeah.
Well,
How many?
He is in fact a certified Akira expert.
Yeah, he's reached the point of Akira Knight, but he has not made the step of a Akira Master, nor have gotten on the Akira Council.
Yeah, his black belt only has one piece of tape on it.
Yeah. It's dark tape though. It's good.
It's good tape.
It's not going anywhere. So how many times have you seen this, Aaron?
all right. Well, back in the mid 90s, they had this thing called Saturday Anime on the Sci-Fi Channel, where they would show about an hour and a half of anime, and they would advertise Akira as like, you can order it, from our channel. And so I went to Blockbuster back when that was a thing, and I rented a copy.
Blockbuster.
Actually, I definitely had to get my parents to rent me the copy because I was probably about 14, and I watched it and I fell in love with it.
That seems like a very highly rated movie in the sense of no kid can just walk off the street and grab it.
Yeah, and
hold on. Your
obvious good
Blockbuster in Niceville had Akira?
It
That's
actually
a
had
hip Blockbuster.
Wow.
It had like
That is a hip, nice
it really
blockbuster.
It had half an aisle of anime, and
It's more than we got.
a lot of it was no good. And a lot
Also,
of it
did you
was,
guys not have a movie gallery? Because I would go to the movie gallery. They'd rent you anything. They don't care how old you are.
No, we had Network Video and Blockbuster.
Wasn't that
And
the
Network
porn
Video
one?
didn't have any anime, but Blockbuster did have a reasonable selection of it for the time it was. I watched it, and as soon as it was possible, I bought it for myself.
So 14 years old is the first time you saw it?
This is the first time I saw it.
No, I don't think that should have happened. I don't think any 14-year-old should go through that movie. I'm 30, and I'm
Right.
not sure if I should have went through that movie, because damn.
So,
But I don't know. Like I also remember, I don't know. I watched some brutal shit whenever I was in high school.
But
like,
since I've owned it, I have probably seen it at least 50 times. I'm not even trying
Does
to
it make
exaggerate
more sense
that.
to you now?
Oh, a lot.
Okay, good.
And there's a lot
so there
of
is hope.
because there's a lot of things that
There's
happen.
a lot of stuff,
there's
man.
a lot of backstory that's just like
Yeah,
implied.
it's based on a manga, and
That
as
was a lot
that is
longer,
way
right?
bigger.
as I learned today, because Aaron told me, the director of this film was the writer of the manga.
Yeah.
That's so
Which explains a
odd.
lot, right?
Yeah,
and,
but
and,
for, like,
and it is
industry-
odd because
Well,
that never happens.
Grant Morrison doesn't direct movies. About
was-
his stuff.
Like Frank Miller is fortunate that he got to be a part of the making of Sin City.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we saw what happened the second time.
Oh,
He was one of the writers, but yeah, obviously, he went into it with an absolute love for the source material because it was his source material, and it was, it's clearly a very personal story for him. There's a lot of interpersonal drama going on that like it took a certain kind of mind to think up this story, and
there's definitely a lot going on.
I don't think you could have 10 brains put together would come up with this much like diversity and connectivity. It has to come from one person.
Yeah,
It's
a
too
very personal
singular
story.
and focused considering how many different directions it goes.
And dear God, the different directions it goes.
It's,
And
it's
it
at
makes-
least
it
5
makes-
movies in one movie.
It makes an awful lot of sense. Yeah, we specifically referred to that watching it on Sunday. But no, it makes a lot of sense that it came from a series of manga books.
Yeah.
Like in the sense that you can tell from watching it that there's a whole lot more to everything that you're seeing.
Well, just the way it's animated alone proves that. Like the fact that like every bit of the frame is moving for a lot of shots, and like the background is extremely
Because
layered
this was made in
for a
'87,
4-second shot of a motorcycle going
came
by.
out in '88, and for that time period, the animation is stellar. Just the level of detail in so many of the shots.
Yeah, this was.
But it was also
in
the most
my
expensive
opinion-
at this time, was it not?
I would not be surprised. I
I
don't know
Did
if
like 10 million.
I don't know if like counting for inflation, it definitely like made more money than any.
That
Anime
is
at
true.
the
That
time.
didn't
Okay, well,
happen.
the only budget I can find is in yen. I'm not making that up.
But no, it's definitely just a super ambitious project, and it was really, really risky at the time. And the fact that they took that risk and they made such a difference to the future of anime is incredibly impressive to me.
Yeah, so like before we watched it, you had this preamble
Yeah.
to everyone, and just trying to get all of us to shut up for 10 minutes is hard enough. But like you really pushed it. Like this is a first, and this is the breakthrough one, and this is the important one. And because of this, all this other stuff happened. But yet you see where the influence comes from.
Yeah.
Not just the manga that previously existed, but other things like Kurosawa films.
All right,
Yeah.
it had about a $10 million budget whenever you
After
I-
you,
I
get it,
think it
after you
made
convert
about-
it.
I think
Yeah.
about in box office
That's a
numbers,
lot
it
for
was
animation.
around 80,
Yeah, that's a
it was
lot
around
for-
80 million
for
so-
1987 and
yeah.
animation. Yeah, that's a big budget.
Yeah.
But it shows. It looks really good. Like one of
Yeah.
my favorite parts of the movie is how the movie looks. My absolute favorite part about the movie is how the movie sounds.
Jeez.
That you know what, I was reading something earlier where like you know how sometimes like the score comes later. Apparently the score was pre-recorded before the composer saw it.
That makes an awful lot of
I can
sense.
see that.
because
And
it
like
kind of it fits a vibe. It doesn't
it
fit
does.
the pacing.
And I really
You know?
appreciate the strong use of percussive elements.
Yeah, it's an '80s movie, so you would assume mostly synth, but there's not that much in it.
The percussion
No.
in when he's in the hallway in the hospital is so
Oh yeah,
fucking chilling.
It does
It's
such a
it's
great job
terrifying.
of creating tension.
Like,
yeah,
you-
like
you don't-
genuine
you
tension.
know, even before it happens, something terrible is going to happen, and then it happens. It's like it is the perfect example of like building suspense and then following through. And the way they use percussion in the movie is amazing and completely original
Yeah.
because there's very little like rock elements to it.
No, not at all.
It's
like
almost tribal.
it's-
It's
it's-
traditional in a way.
it definitely like sounds like it came from like an anime film or something like that. Like it has that kind of vibe to it, but it stands apart. Like I would recognize that. Like I would recognize the pieces that I hear in this movie as opposed to like Dragon Ball Z.
yeah. Would you buy the soundtrack?
Yeah, I think I would own the soundtrack to this movie
it's,
for
it's
sure.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, well,
I
Dragon
feel
Ball
like
Z
it would be.
soundtrack's
I
very
feel like it'd be
basic.
fun to like if you're road tripping down the interstate and you have some of those like just like the intro
Yeah.
beat. It would just be like if it's like nighttime out, I can see that.
And
those-
maybe you go down the road and maybe you get like a little confident. Maybe you start to like turn your headlights off and
Maybe-
drive in the dark.
Maybe you
Maybe you
get
close
into an
your eyes.
altercation with a bike gang, and that becomes the first movie
Maybe
of
you
this.
interpret a bunch of psychic beings.
I love that about it because when I saw this movie advertised, I was like, oh, it's about like biker gangs and like some creepy, dystopian
That-
future.
Which
So
would
it's
be
like
fine.
Mad
That
Max.
is-
Would be fine.
I
that-
thought I was going to be watching the
would
Japanese
be
Mad
okay.
Max.
That is one of the 5 movies that is going on in this
That's
movie.
the first one, I think.
and really,
right?
kind of the primary.
I think it's the
one.
first one.
Yeah. It starts in the bar.
Well, first it starts with some big explosion happening. It doesn't say what,
1988
Yeah.
in Tokyo. It's just a big explosion. You
and
assume
then it cuts
it's nuclear.
to July of this year.
Yeah, because you know how
Interesting enough,
Tokyo looks like.
we are
Akira
recording
now?
this in January in 2019.
So we're pretty much coming.
Wait,
up
is it
on
still
Akira.
January? Yeah, it's barely still January.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way that the way that Neo Tokyo looks in this movie is really, it's just a very original. It's kind of like Blade Runner, but just even more worn down and ugly.
You know, they've come a long way in 30 years.
I think there's a middle part between like Blade Runner and this movie. You know, it's a good hybrid of everything. Remember Batman Beyond and that backdrop
Batman
of Gotham?
Beyond. I still want a Batman Beyond movie. That should be
due one.
That should be the next Batman movie. That's what I'd much rather have that.
I would support that in the next 5 years. A good Batman Beyond movie.
And that would give the cyberpunks something to talk about. I'm telling you what.
They would.
Terrible confession. I've never watched.
I'd
talk about
my ass off about Batman
I'd
Beyond.
talk about that movie like a mug. You know what I'm talking about?
Got the Batman Beyond unlocked, son.
That's what I'm saying, though.
Unlocked.
I've never seen it. I feel.
Oh,
bad.
well, you can leave for 5 minutes while we talk about this.
Well, no, it's like Batman when he's old and stuff, right?
It's Gotham's very cyberpunky.
Okay.
And it looks like Blade Runner.
And then like the central protagonist wears like a Batman Iron Man suit.
Yeah, I've seen.
He can fly.
That's awesome.
I remember the previews.
But the villains are different. That's the thing always hung me up about Batman Beyond. Besides the Joker,
and then they shoehorn the Joker into it.
Yeah, although that is a good movie. And besides the point, because we're talking about Akira.
We got lost talking about other cyberpunk property.
But the world building, the cyberpunk aspect, I really like it because it is so grimy and worn down.
Oh
and
yeah,
just
it's dark.
rotten.
There's no trash.
Ugly.
You know,
there's like
just
soot.
grimy. It's
gross.
It looks like Batman versus Superman is going to happen in the distance.
Glazed over with dirt as opposed to filth. Well, it's filth, but not trash.
And just like me and Asher were saying for the first half hour of the film, like how does anybody live more than 12 hours?
Yeah,
and
everybody's getting arrested or shot at by the government.
And and if the police don't kill you, then like this biker gang over here is just gonna run over your face into a coffee table with their motorcycle.
And you're not making that up. That happened at some point. Some two guys
in the first 10 minutes.
I think by the hero.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it might have been Canada. I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Blame Canada. Blame.
But yeah, no, there was this fancy, and even going out to a fancy restaurant, you might just have your head driven over with a motorcycle.
Yeah, it's crazy. Don't drive on the interstate. It's just like LA. Don't drive on the interstate out there.
Or just don't leave your house if you're fortunate enough to have one. I don't know.
Don't go to Neo Tokyo. You know what? I bet you outside of this, it's all just fine. I feel like in Tokyo, this is what's happening now, and we're fine.
That's one thing.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me. Me and Aaron were talking about this a little bit earlier. Is like it's so fascinating. Well, it's just before you guys got here, it's fascinating to examine Japanese culture that produced after World War II.
Mm-hmm. Like, some of the best stuff they did.
There's such a dramatic shift for two very obvious reasons.
Yes. Indeed.
And just like this is a piece of art that I feel like couldn't have come there wouldn't have been the environment to create something like this if it weren't for the culture that came post World War II.
Yeah, and I feel like we're not seeing like the start of that. I feel like we're seeing like kind of the apex of that.
This isn't like Kierkegaard level existentialism. This is like Camus.
Yeah, this is like just really intense, ultimate extreme of what this age started out as.
I mean, do we want to get into the ending, or should we wait on that?
We're gonna get into spoilers. We're definitely gonna do that. But are we just gonna start from the top?
Spoilers ahead, folks.
Yeah. So this movie basically starts out with a couple of street youths.
Youths. Watch out!
They're
a bunch of young troublemakers.
They're basically they have nothing in their life except like violence and
horror show violence and drugged milk.
This
is not the first comparison I'm going to make to A Clockwork Orange.
There will definitely be another one coming
how
later.
Many? We're in store.
Well, he has one saved up for later, which I have. We'll have a conversation about.
You guys worked this out ahead of time.
Okay. Well, don't worry.
Don't worry about it.
So basically, like these guys, they have no concept of any kind of future beyond just like living for the day. So
they're high school kids, right? They're orphans and they're high school kids. They become a biker gang. Yeah. What were you doing at 16?
It's a school of orphans. It's a school of kids nobody wants in this fucking world.
The government's barely spending any money on
Somehow
to teach
they
them
find
nothing.
motorcycles in Canada's
punishment.
They steal
like
them.
Punishment.
You just bitch slaps them. It's fucked up. But Canada's bike is better than anyone's bike at all, and sponsored by Canon.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Like
And I'm
I
not
don't
talking shit
know.
about
I don't
sponsorship,
know.
but I think it's a good thing.
And like I think there's some truth. Like Asher was saying the whole time. Like I'm telling you, the movie's about the motorcycle. The motorcycle's named Akira.
Oh, the motorcycle is
Yeah. Oh, motorcycle's Akira.
the second most important character.
And of course, I said right away that the twist is going to be that Akira was inside all of us all along.
And then it kind of
Was.
Kind
I kind of called
in a
it.
weird,
It's
non-obvious, confusing way. One that I
Well, and-
is yet to be explained.
And one that subverts your expectations.
That's a form of a thing.
Whoa.
okay, but it actually did. It actually worked in this movie.
Thank you, Aaron. Somebody's got my back.
But
I didn't say you were wrong. I'm just making fun of you before I tell you you're right.
But so the movie Akira.
so it starts with them basically they're in a fight with this rival gang called the Clowns. And their gang is actually called the Capsules. They never says it in the movie, but that's
Is
that's
that
why
why
he
he
they-
wears the
the
capsule.
pill
They
capsule?
have that symbol all over everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
little pill
capsules
capsule.
are, and it's
Which doesn't-
that's a metaphor for multiple things.
And the right and
Yeah.
the clowns, they're the ones that kind of wear that get up gear, like they're one of the gangs in the Warriors or something.
yeah, that would
Or they're like the Raiders from Fallout or something like that.
They're a thing from a thing.
So they get into a street fight with their
But this
motorcycles.
thing
and-
came. Well, I guess this came after the Warriors, but definitely before Fallout.
It's about 10 years after the Warriors. But there's no clowns in the Warriors unless you count the Baseball Furies, which aren't really clowns. They're more like,
No, I mean,
menacing paint.
like they're clowns, but they're a different kind of clown.
yeah, it ain't, it ain't
But
ha-ha
these
clowns.
guys aren't clowns
These are real
either.
clowns, the clown gang.
So in the middle of the bike fight, it cuts away to the secondary story, which is a guy who is trying to take what appears to be a child, like off somewhere, and he is obviously wounded, and you don't know what's
Yeah, yeah.
going on. It
Oh,
seems like
yeah.
he's trying to save him because there are people after him, and there's a really fucked up scene with some dogs.
Yep.
Oh, man, the dogs.
Juxtaposed over a nice, happy-looking dog commercial.
And
Oh, yeah, in the bar, there's like that dog commercial. It's really goofy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was so unpleasant.
That's you know what, that's not fair. I'm gonna call it. You can't. Well, yeah, I guess you can. But you throw a commercial in just to juxtapose the emotion of what's actually happening in the main storyline at the time.
Yeah.
It's a cinematic device that does work, but you got to be careful because people can find it cheap at times.
They didn't do
I
it
don't
too
feel like it's
much.
cheap here.
No, it did a really good job to establish the world.
It works
Because that's
here,
what was
but
happening for this whole sequence is we're establishing the world.
It kind of reminded me of RoboCop.
It is.
Would you buy that for $1?
This? God damn it!
So that happens, and like you have absolutely no idea what's going on. There's obviously something a little off with this child because he looks kind of like an old man.
He's like green.
Yeah,
but he
he's-
acts like a child too.
He's like got the Benjamin Button syndrome or something.
So the man is viciously murdered by
Mm-hmm.
police. I mean, he was trying to shoot them too, but the kid
No,
has
the police
reaction.
the police in this movie are not the good guys.
Yeah,
I
no.
don't.
There's
are
no
there,
there
there's
are
no
the good
good
guys.
guys.
And
in
was
this movie.
was
Canada's the closest
no
thing.
no when this movie came out, was Japan at that time under martial law?
No, and it wasn't. It was. It's
Is that
not,
what you're-
It wasn't martial law in an official sense. It was more of like there were a series of police actions that escalated to the point where they just basically they made it very difficult to have any guns, and they made it very easy for the police to use guns because there was a lot of riots going on and things got very bad for a number of years in the 70s. So like basically it was people were more afraid to act out, but people were already in this mentality of being so terribly defeated after World War II that like they immediately just went okay with it.
Well, damn! I can't believe nobody made Escape from Okinawa.
It's an interesting time in
That
Japan.
would have been
A lot of people don't talk about it, but it was a very sad and
Well,
kind of
it's alluded to in the movie because the first bar scene, which is the first couple minutes of on the TV, you hear the news about student riots,
Yeah.
and that's what you told us before with your preamble that you had obviously rehearsed because you had notes, and you were wearing a sparkly cape.
You and I remember this very differently.
And what was the podium about? It took
Yeah.
up a lot of the space in the living
We had to
room.
go to a gymnasium, not a gym, a gymnasium, and then go back to his house to watch the movie.
It's like, you know how there were student riots in America around the same time? It was just, it was exponentially.
I can't
worse.
imagine that ever happening again.
Why would it? But in the news in the movie, it does allude to student riots happen today.
Yes.
Blah blah blah. So it kind of starts. It ties into what you were talking about.
Yeah, but
yeah, so this world fucked up.
So
This world fucked up. That's what we're saying.
Upon seeing this guy being terribly murdered by a bunch of machine guns, the little child who looks like an old man.
Yeah, talk about RoboCop.
Has a
And it's just like a wall of
breakout.
police officers with machine guns. Just
Yeah, like they get it. It's
and he destroys a bunch of mirrors and like a building with his psychic powers, which now that's a thing. So suddenly psychic powers are a thing in this movie.
I think that
It's
was
like,
the
yep,
first
okay.
what moment of just like watching a weird thing happen. You go, what?
Well, according to Asher, woo!
There were Asher was there, and there were many.
There were
this.
many woos.
I can't even remember all the woos.
So
We'll try and keep an accurate representation of the woos.
From now on, I'm going to start keeping a log.
A woo log?
A woo log.
Seems like a lot of work, man.
So
It's going to be worth it. It's going to pay off.
one of our for now protagonists, Tetsuo Shima. Tetsuo Shima. He was in front of everybody else in the motorcycle chase, and he runs into this child as he had like teleported onto the street.
Man, I never bought it.
What's up?
I never bought it.
You never bought the Tetsuo, like snuffed it? And do you think the kid actually did something to his bike?
No, like I never bought into this guy is the good guy.
Well, yeah,
there's no good guys
you
in
see
this movie.
automatically
The
that
closer one's
there's
Canada.
something wrong in his eyes.
And
But so he's hit by this kid's psychic blast, and it kind of changes his own brain pattern, and he gains psychic powers.
Yeah, but he
that
goes to the
was
hospital.
that was that was a
Long
that
time
was a
to figure
woo moment.
Yeah, woo.
Whenever like he comes crashing into the kid,
Yeah.
and there's like just like he has a Ness from Earthbound moment or whatever, and
Yeah.
and that was just woo.
And that's where
Okay,
the- that's
all
where
right,
the-
this is happening.
That's where
We're
the
doing
government
this.
comes in and they try and take the kid, but the biker gang's there, the capsules that we now know.
And the big bad shows up.
yeah. Boss Volume 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's mid-level boss. Like he shows up and he takes all the kids in to give them like just question them.
Big
And
boss
they
shows
impound
up on the
all
shield
bikes,
helicarrier,
But they take Tetsuo to a hospital.
and they arrest everybody.
Everybody.
But they like because the
Oh, there's that scene in the holding cell with like all the other gang
yeah.
members, and the guy pulls out a grenade, and everyone thinks this is it, and this guy's like, I'm taking my life, and everyone's with me, and then the grenade doesn't work.
So then he gets his ass
Gets his
kicked.
ass beat the fuck up.
police
It's
and
messed
as
up.
they drag him away,
They
there's
drag
just
his
a
ass away.
very large puddle of blood.
And
where
then the
his
guy's
face
like,
was.
we'll deal with them on our own terms. And then it pans up
So
and
they
you see above
just-
the rooms, and you can hear him getting beaten.
Yeah.
So he's just getting his ass beat even worse in another room.
So, but the police system is so overrun that they can't be bothered to deal with this thing, even though they beat the shit out of these clown guys and probably killed one of them.
Probably.
They just
Yeah, people
let them
die
go because there's
easily in this movie.
there's too many people to process.
But we've reported you to your school.
and the school
Because
later
they're teenagers.
just
And
systematically
on the way out,
punches him in the face.
Is it Tetsao who's just like she's one of us, or is that Canada?
That was Canada.
That was Canada.
All right. It's Canada. All right.
Canada. Okay, no, I want to get this right. It's Canada
It's Canada.
and
Tetsuo.
Tetsuo.
Yeah.
Tetsuo and Canada.
So
Yes.
Clarence Senior on his way out just points,
Christopher Walken.
just points to
And
a
then Boots
pretty
Riley
a
makes
pretty
sorry to
girl.
bother you.
Just points to a pretty
This little
girl.
thing. And
Who's-
Predator 2, that's all the references. Now we can move on.
Her name is
It
Kay.
is not.
Her name is Kay. She was working with the guy that was trying to help the kid, and
That's right,
she
that's
ended up
right.
being arrested
And
but that happened in, like, half a
gets,
scene.
Gets her out because she's like she's a part of our gang.
because she's hot. That's literally the only reason.
Are you
Oh, yeah,
serious?
Yeah.
Oh man, come
he
on.
didn't know. He didn't know any better.
I
He
mean,
saw her.
why a
and-
teenage boy does it.
But
That's exactly what it was. It
That's
was like
literally-
she was pretty.
he
She's
immediately
pretty. and
tries to get in her pants.
Yep.
Like that's the first thing he does, and he's like,
He's a very likable hero type.
he's an interesting protagonist. That's for sure.
Man, they should put this guy in Smash. That'd be badass.
Oh yeah.
With like his laser gun.
Laser
Oh,
gun
that
thing.
laser gun would be
yeah,
so
like
sweet.
And then like a
and the
special
bike.
was the bike. Yeah,
And the bike?
the bike. And it just
Dude.
runs back and forth.
Nintendo, take notes.
You hear us? You hear us out there?
You know what? I bet the rights to Canada would be like just
Nintendo has all the
extraordinary.
money.
Yeah, but still, like they I don't think they've ever put out. I don't think have they ever put out an Akira video game? I don't think so.
No, they put out some other stuff.
No, but they put out a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh no, yeah, there's.
I'm just saying, like, he's a character that would fit well into the Smash universe.
Yeah.
That's all. But anyway,
So clearly, this becomes more about some government secret stuff, and Tetsuo.
a lot of government secret stuff.
At which the movie doesn't try to explain that hard.
And
It's
then-
more like you watch it happen.
And then there's like secret society outside of the government secret stuff.
This is where I start to question what is Akira.
Yeah, at this point, it's like pushing 5.5 movies.
Yeah.
So Akira is a character who is revered by some of these kind of doomsday prophet.
Because there's a
Cult
there's a
people.
tremendous amount of energy that comes from Akira
Akira's
that's noticeable, and
They keep Akira locked in the basement.
yeah, they feel like
Like,
Akira
locked deep
embodies
away.
them at certain times, and Akira holds the truth to many things.
And Akira has some relationship
And
with
there's-
the explosion that happened way
and
back then.
I'll
That
go
led,
ahead-
that led to World War III. We forgot to mention that.
Yeah, that's
there
what the
was,
explosion
there
was.
was a
Yeah,
whole
That's what
nother
it was.
World War III.
World War III
There
was
was a nuclear war
1987
after
or
this.
whatever.
But between like the government and then what we later learn are the little psychic kids.
They're called Espers, actually.
Espers. The little psychic kids are
I forgot
Espers.
the name. Their names
And
are
like
Espers.
crazy doomsday cult, you don't fully understand what Akira is.
Yeah.
You just get general ideas of what Akira could be.
There's people that talk about Akira.
Until the end,
Yeah.
until the end, you're like, yeah. People talk about it.
Akira is a
Sometimes they don't
cult or
talk about
something.
Akira like it's a person.
Yeah, Akira is like a cult.
Yeah,
Well, and I mentioned this earlier, but Akira basically acts as a MacGuffin for the whole movie.
yes, we know.
The mystery.
But-
box.
We tried. I tried really hard to figure out what Akira is, and I kind of sort of have a theory.
That Akira is inside all of us and was the whole time.
Eventually, but not because it's not because of the reason why. It usually is that. I'll say at the end.
Doesn't matter who.
That's cool. I definitely want to hear your theory. I've watched it enough to definitely get my own opinion on it, but I definitely want to hear your guys' opinions on the ending and your interpretations of it, because it is purposefully
It's.
ambiguous.
I mean, like at this point,
it's 2001-ish.
At this point,
Yeah.
it's still like a fresh take. Like only seen it once
Yeah.
Yeah,
and saw it once very recently, but.
it's been 48 hours, but it feels like 12.
But I mean, like, I've definitely had time to kind of marinate on it. And it's one of those movies that you do want to marinate on.
Yeah,
And
you look at IMDb hoping you can find some clues, and you don't.
actually, I didn't do very much of that this time. I just kind of tossed it around. But I mean, like, I really like a lot of what it's saying. I mean, like I referenced existentialism earlier, and there definitely are some elements to that. Or like maybe nihilism is more accurate. Like whenever you're facing down a force that is as big as what the Akira force ends up being, but at the same time, Canada really steps into the hero role as Tetsuo steps into the villain role.
It
And-
becomes Joseph Campbell at some point. It's so abstract,
Yeah,
and then it forms into, frankly,
But their reasons for doing so are so so wildly different than the normal archetype.
yeah, but it falls into it so
You're right.
naturally.
You're right, but
Yeah.
I think their motivations are what makes it most interesting, for the fact that the fact that they become who they become in the movie.
Well, it's when you break it down, like Kanada's most motivation is to save and help, and Tetsuo's is for infinite power. What's more complicated than that?
Tetsu is the guy that's been bullied like his whole life. He's
Even
always
his
the
best
guy
friend,
who's
Kanada, he still feels pushed around by.
yeah.
any kind of
He resents
Yeah,
he resents
they
he
both
resents
were
Canada.
orphan kids. They grew up together, right?
kind
Yeah.
of,
The
they
orphanage?
grew up in the same orphanage.
But Canada is always looking out for Tetsuo, even if he's giving Tetsuo a hard time. Like that's kind of like, and that's a thing that we learn, especially towards the end. But that's where that's where his quest for power comes from, is his lack of having any kind of power up to this point in his life.
yeah,
And now suddenly he
compensated
has
hard.
more power
He's
than
ultimate.
anyone.
he has ultimate
And
power.
Yeah.
you think he's the most ultimate being for a long chunk of this movie. You think like this is it. You
Yeah.
can't stop Tetsuo.
Yeah, no, nobody can stop him.
So like
He took on the old people kids.
yeah, and as the government is starting to keep him, do tests on him, he's starting to trip out a little bit. see some shit.
Which
Feel
that's
some shit while the biker gang's they hook up with rebels, right? To try and get inside the hospital.
Just
For
to
like
save,
for
he
like a
goes to
minute.
save him.
Well,
Yeah.
pause. That's one of those moments in the movie that I felt like, okay, this is where I can tell that there's a whole lot of manga that goes on between the thing we last saw and now all of a sudden we're at the stadium and they've been containing Tetsuo for however long now.
The fact that the rebels randomly show up and then they're gone 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
Like, that's deep as hell.
I'm sure there's a whole bunch of shit that explains whatever was happening,
Yeah,
but
there's no way they could have covered it without doing like a show, and
series.
they would have never gotten the funding to do a
but
show.
I just have to accept that this is where we are now.
Yeah,
This is it. This is where we are, and it's fine.
but
And I knew that it would be fine.
We're fine.
But no, yeah, the entire
Tetsuo told someone it to be
entire hospital scene is.
Oh, break that down. Start from scratch there, homie. With Tetsuo. So Tetsuo was in the hospital after the accident with the psychic
And
kid.
he escapes shortly. They show almost nothing of that. Like he just gets out of the hospital and.
Oh, you're blowing over,
he-
man. Come on.
No.
He has
No.
he has a
When he
Die Hard
meets up-
moment.
He meets up with Kaori and they try to steal Kanada's bike. And things do not go well because he doesn't know how to drive his bike. The clowns show up.
Kanada's
Oh
bike.
yeah,
crap
yeah,
out of
yeah.
him.
Kanada's
And
bike is
Kanada
completely
has to
made for
show up
Kanada.
and save the day.
Yeah, in which Tetsuo does not want
Like
to
I
have
like I was just saying,
And it
which is
sets him
part of the
off.
whole thing.
It
like the
sets him
second-
off.
it's
So
like
the
the-
government comes and grabs him.
But that's
again.
not the first time. That's not
No,
the first
it's
time that
like the-
Tetsuo's
but
been
it's
in
where it-
trouble and Canada had to show
It's
up
like
and bail
the
his ass
first
out.
scenes replayed again.
Yeah, but that's
like
where
two
it
very
becomes
consistent
clear
behind.
exactly what's wrong.
This
what
is
exactly
their
going on.
relationship. This
Yeah.
is his identity as far as he knows.
And like Kanada had every reason to be like, dude, you stole my bike. I should kick your face in.
He's
But he
cool
wasn't.
about it.
He's not gonna do that because that's his friend.
Yeah.
Good friend.
Like even when he kind of bullies him, even when he kind of like he's just acting kind of like an alpha dog. It's just like I got to keep you in line because
well-
I know better.
well, Canada's the he's the leader of the pack.
So then they take him back to the hospital, and things just go out of line because the Espers,
The psychic
they
kicks.
they decide among themselves that he's too dangerous to let the government continue getting him stronger because his power will not be able to be contained, and he's going to be even worse than Akira if he actually attains like his true potential. So they try to kill him in a very strange and nightmarish manner.
Oh, yeah,
They
it's-
try to kill him by hallucination.
It's when it happens, you're just like, what the hell am I watching?
I loved your guys' expressions because
I
I've seen it so
felt-
many times. I was just like, yeah,
I
I
was
know.
so happy for once to be the guy who didn't see the movie that we're watching, and for two to let someone else like Aaron have that experience that we often have with like Asher. We watch somebody watch the movie, and this like
Asher did get all of us for what was it? The Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
God, that movie.
God, all
Just
you
felt-
guys,
You guys still won't tell me anything about that.
all you can
What do you want me to
do.
tell you? It's uncomfortable. It's the
All
most
you can
uncomfortable
do
movie.
is react to the horrible things you're seeing happen on the screen.
I'll just
It's
have,
like an awkward date for. How long an awkward date? It's like an awkward date, but like they won't leave your house.
well, I'll watch it myself sometime, I guess.
Oh God.
So they basically transform into these nightmarish versions of gigantic toys that they
Dissipate in the dust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he realizes he can use his psychic
Well-
powers against them, he
he
defeats them pretty
he
quickly.
steps on a glass that he broke in
That's
the
right.
in the process of like being scared by his powers, kind of. It was like a whole scene like that.
Yeah.
And he steps on the broken glass, a la Die Hard, and
Yeah.
starts bleeding.
And then when he rips it out, they see his blood, and the kids.
And the kids freak out because of blood.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even though they're like old people, they're still children at heart. Like, they never grew past being, like whatever.
Kids. Yeah.
So that happens, and then he decides that he's just going to leave. And they,
Because he can. He realizes that he can.
and they
I'll
encounter.
just walk
he
out of here.
paints the walls
He
with,
God, so
with,
these,
with people.
People painter.
He smushes
Tetsuo.
them. He smushes them in a spherical manner
It's-
against all of the walls.
So he decides to leave. He gets to the hallway. There's like it's either doctors or orderlies or security guards or cops or something. And do you remember in Watchmen
And it's
where
like, oh, he's 11.
yeah, it's like that. It's like he's 11. But do you remember in Watchmen when like there's a cutaway scene in like a Dr. Manhattan flashback and all he does is point his hand at gangsters who are jumping up in slow motion to pull guns on them, and they just implode, and there's just nothing but entrails sitting on the ceiling, dripping all over their dates. That's what happened to these motherfuckers
Yeah.
in the hallways due to Tetsuo.
Pieces of guys falling out.
That portion of the hallway is now red.
You're very lucky if there's any portion that
There's
it still
stuff
looks like
that's
a human.
dripping down.
So he
Like,
just
maybe there's a finger.
he could just
The
continues,
animation looks great and it's horrifying.
It looks really good.
he just continues to effortlessly murder these people to get himself to the baby room, where the espers are contained. But meanwhile, Kaneda has hooked up with Kay because he like kind of found her out, and
And she's being controlled by the little girl kid all along.
no, that happens
it
later.
comes and goes,
That
man.
happens later.
I
They're
don't
they're
know.
being
that whole thing's
I think
creepy.
it's so subtle that Kay doesn't know she's
they're
taken over
being
until the end.
paid by this corrupt politician who looks like a rabbit to capture these children in order to like, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, this
there's
is one of those
some
throwaway
weird,
things.
complicated thing involved.
There's like
it's some political
politicians
thing.
form a coup with these rebels to take over.
They want.
There's
they-
a council, right? Wait, hold on. Here's the deal. Me and Aaron watched the anime version of Metropolis like the week before, so I might be forgetting. I might be mixing the two a little bit.
They did have very similar
there's like
situations.
class systems and revolutionaries and all this. But isn't this the one where like one guy tries to stage a coup for the count? No, this is the one where there's like the general, like boss one,
It's Colonel
whatever.
Hold on. Colonel.
Yeah, it's a
cannot
piece
read.
of paper.
Shikishima.
So the
Colonel
colonel
Shikishima.
Colonel Shikishima is in charge of controlling the city with the militia and the army for the council.
But he also has control over the espers and Akira.
And Akira, so he decides like, nah, fuck it. Take out the council, arrest everyone. I'm taking over the city.
But what the rabbit dude was trying to do, was capture one of the espers so they could use him, I think, as like political blackmail. But that's why they sent the terrorists in, because he was funding the terrorists from the outset.
This movie's got layers.
I think they were also trying to kill Bruce Willis. And
I think getting Bruce Willis was a bonus.
It's-
because we
and
all
James
know they're just
and-
going after money in the
and
safe.
and Sam Jackson and
It suggested that the rabbit dude, I cannot remember his name. I'm sorry.
Rabbit Dude's fine.
It suggested that the rabbit dude wanted to use the power of Akira
no,
to
it's just
recreate
a silly
the
secret
initial
organization
explosion.
that I just don't quite understand what it is they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's
But
another one of those, what?
It is
moments. of
It
this
is a
movie.
little complicated, and it's kind of just you're kind of just supposed to understand their motivations
Oh, I'm
more than
just
their
supposed
actual
to get it.
intent.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the supposed to.
But anyway, so Kaneda goes along with the rebel dudes to
They're going to rescue Tetsuo.
rescue Tetsuo. And
okay.
one of them gets killed by a flying motorcycle bike.
That's
Or,
generous. It's more
what
like
was that
it's
thing?
more like a snow ski that
was a
also
snow ski.
flies.
I imagine that a lot of people do get killed by flying motorcycle bikes in this universe.
It was
Yeah, there's a lot of collateral damage.
it was a flying jet ski with a Gatling gun on the front. One of the dudes
like you do,
one of the dudes got killed
like we
by
have
that.
in 2019.
and
And then
and
they get separated from Ryu, which is a dude from earlier. It's
are
one of
we
the
are we getting to the
terrorists.
part? Are we getting to the part where like Canada's on the elevator with that motherfucker? And
Yes, this is about to. So
get to
Canada
that,
and
get to
Ray
that.
get on
And
the
the doors open?
thing, and the doors open, and he's on an elevator, and he's like, "Hey, where's the baby room?" And the dude in front of him is just like, obviously shitting his pants because this is the last thing he expected to see.
And this is one of the movie's twists.
So they get there and they find Tetsuo, and he is in a fight with the espers. And Tetsuo
And
just
it turns out that the espers are the babies.
the little children.
That's
old
the
children
they're the babies.
They were in a. It's this creepy like
Yeah, it's crazy.
gigantic nursery room. It's very
It's
hard to
really
explain.
creepy.
But
like
you
a
know the
huge
kids are
tree.
like 34.
There's like a huge tree and like
dude, I don't
gigantic
know,
kids'
but they
toys
look
everywhere.
like they're 80.
But yeah,
and they also
but
still
they're
have the
still kids.
mentality
They're still
of children.
kids.
Yeah.
but
So
with like
anyway-
crazy powers.
They're
Tet-
Half-Life kids. That
So
34.
Tetsuo almost
It's-
hurts Kaneda,
It's like the New Mutants, but like if it worked.
and then he immediately reveals that was evil the whole time. Because Kanada's like, I'm here to save you. And he's like, you don't need to save me anymore. I'll do the saving from now on.
And I believe in that moment, that's whenever I said, it's like, it's almost like he's the villain. You get it? Because he's the villain.
The last hour of this movie is these two people going at it. I'm like, I think this guy's the villain.
So you realize very quickly that, this isn't going to end well for anybody. And the Espers tell him telepathically that there's someone stronger than him, and that's Akira.
Which, by the way, the movie still has not explained who Akira is,
except that he's connected to the big explosion in
the big explosion. So it makes Tetsuo start walking towards the newly built Olympic Stadium, right?
Well, Akira's the spooky ghost in the basement. That's what we know about him.
He definitely is that. But so the military attacks him. They shoot a tank bullet at him, and it explodes right in front of him. It's one of the coolest scenes.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's
like this sonic invisible force field around them. So when they shoot this giant thing, it explodes like
just creates a crater in front of
him.
him.
And for some reason, Tetsuo is like, "Fuck it, I'll embrace this," and gets a cape. Knows this shit like a fucking like a Superman cape. It's just like it's like a curtain, and he's like, you know what? Gonna wrap this around my shit.
He puts on a cape like he's about to walk into Super Smash Bros. As another downloadable character after Canada.
Just own it.
It'd be like a Mewtwo type fighter.
It was basically like putting on a sign that
I want to see both.
I am the villain now. And it worked. It's really good. An
interesting detail about the cape. Whenever he puts it on, if you look real closely, it says on the back, "Haters gonna hate."
So then he immediately just starts like blowing up tanks with his mind, and he destroys a bridge with a bunch of his followers on it
because he's just evil. And they're obsessed. The cult aspect is interesting. They're obsessed with Akira, even though they just assume Akira is just God.
But they also
just all essence of every energy,
and they also assume
they see this in Tetsuo, so they feel like Tetsuo is like the messiah of this whole thing. And then they go there, and Tetsuo's like, "I don't give a shit. What happens? I'll fuck up this bridge. Everyone starts to fall."
Oh, he fucks up that bridge.
There ain't no bridge no more.
And me and Aaron were talking about that a little bit too earlier because we talked about a little bit of this stuff. I'm sorry, guys.
Man, I was only like 11 minutes late.
I'm sorry, guys. We talked about a little bit of this, but John, apparently, apparently.
It's not fair.
John looks heartbroken.
I got home.
He really does.
I got here a little early.
So we were talking about it, and he said this is one of the parts that the manga really went into, is the whole like the cult of Tesao that comes in the wake of him fucking up the military, essentially, and it's just and I can definitely see that kind of a story play out based on what we've seen Tetsuo do. Like it seems like in this kind of dystopian sci-fi future fantasy story, like, okay, so these people are now they're like diehard followers of Tetsuo. Tetsuo is like an incarnation of like the most powerful god that ever was.
It's easy how people make up their religious ideas like really quickly.
It's I made a Tommy comparison, I believe. It's kind of like like the messianic figure shows up and everybody wants to embrace that, even though like it's a problematic figure. But they're just so eager to embrace something. That was a point that you were drawing on.
They're looking for Brian.
They were waiting.
Brian.
They were waiting for him because they were living
Brian.
in such a miserable reality that anything would be better, even if it was just a nihilistic, destructive force of nature that would leave nothing in its path. That was something at least.
That would strap a gag on you, blindfold you, and stick you at a pinball machine.
Like he becomes in the comic, he actually I think becomes a leader of the clowns at one point or something like that. I really need to read it, to be honest. I feel bad that I haven't in all these years. It's just they're very expensive. But
I can understand. That makes sense.
But so he like basically takes over like a whole section of Neo Tokyo, and like he's
it's important to clarify. This is Neo Tokyo. It says so back in the beginning.
It's like it's not built on the ruins so much as it's built far away from the original Tokyo. That was
it's like that episode of The Simpsons where they just moved the whole city like 5 miles down the road.
Hey, Homer.
But the whole thing with him.
I'll be a moose.
Getting addicted to the pills, like that was stretched out. He becomes severely addicted to those pills, and he becomes just like a drug-addled mess who just goes around just doing some terrible things that I don't really want to go into specific detail about. But
Is it painting the walls with security personnel? Because he does that.
it
Can't top that.
Cowrie was not exactly his girlfriend before the beginning.
Oh no, he
of
was
all the
deep in the
events.
friend zone.
No, she becomes one of the women that he just kind of gets because he can do whatever he wants.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of gets like that.
So he rapes her.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty much their
It's called rape.
relationship.
Yeah.
That's called rape.
Yep. So yeah,
Whenever
that's who he
a
becomes.
man uses power to get sex from a woman, that's called rape.
And it like he does that with not just her, but a lot of women. But she becomes.
Are we?
Like
but are we all on record that that's
Yes,
how
we
that
all agree
works?
with the exact statement you said, and
So,
we'll never
like,
argue against it.
I'm just like, is that hard to understand? Or
No,
we all
we get it.
But the movie
Okay.
portrayed their
all
relationship
safe.
as a.
It just seems like it's like a thing in so many situations, and just like I don't know, you feel like a crazy person.
the movie makes their relationship out to be a boyfriend girlfriend thing.
It's
like
more
immediately,
I feel more like she's into him, and he's like cool with it. That's what I feel from him.
she's something. She's anything. She's
I feel
somebody
like
that
I feel like
continues
he's just,
caring
like,
about him, no matter
lets
how
her hang
terrible
out
he
and
becomes.
kind of like just doesn't really pay attention. It's really
That's
Rude.
the thing. Like nobody else wants to be around him because he becomes a fucking monster. But she's the only one that still like cares about him somehow. And I'm pretty sure that relationship still plays out in the comic, but
so
it
this
doesn't
plays out in the
start
manga, but
very
in the
well.
movie, he's pretty much like on the way straight to the stadium, right?
Well, wait, no, not the stadium first. He's got to find Akira first.
I thought Akira finds him. Wait, no, sorry. Kaneda finds him on the way to the stadium where Akira is.
Yeah, because
But hold on. No, there was a scene before that. It wasn't at the stadium. He takes Akira to the stadium. He finds him in
Akira to the stadium. Where's he find Akira? Oh, that's right. Akira's in like this.
the underground
ball.
facility.
That's right. There's an underground facility and there's this whole fight sequence, and it pops out of the ground. And it's just weird. It looks like everyone's like, "Oh, it's just." I'm
but
like,
that's
no,
the fight sequence with Canada.
it's one of the fight
at the
sequences.
stadium.
First, he
no,
has
it's
a-
before that.
First, he has a fight with Kay, who is now inhabited by the minds of the three Espers, who are using her as a conduit for their psychic powers to fight against him, but they're still not strong enough to beat him.
Right.
So she's kind of defeated, and then
This is where they find Akira, and it pops
Yeah.
out of the ground like it's been buried.
Yeah.
And Akira's this giant sphere. It looks like the Technodrome, dude.
yeah,
And it says Akira. I'm like, oh, that's Akira. Akira's a bomb.
and so he uses
And
his
then they
psychic
open
powers
it, and
to
there's a
rip it
bunch of
apart.
exposition dump by both the Espers and Colonel what's his name of who Akira is. So there's all these cylinders with like brain stems in it,
organ
and just
parts.
organs of what was left of Akira.
Yeah.
And then they go to the damn stadium because you kept saying this. You're like, well, this is one of 5 climaxes of this movie.
Well, no,
It's like, when are we gonna get to the goddamn stadium?
But him,
No,
him and
it built
Kaneda,
up.
him and Kaneda do
But no,
have
it's
a fight
funny that
there.
it's funny that you say that the movie has 5 climaxes. Well, there are 5 movies.
But him
All of them got to finish. Sorry.
him and Kaneda do have a fight
Totally
there.
fair.
They have a short one where he shows up and he's basically like, because they
Is this the one where Canada's a badass and just like straight up like has that underhand laser thing that just works awesome?
like blasts him right in the belly. But
Yeah, like some shit out of like Bishop from X-Men. Like
Yeah,
what?
straight up. Like it hooks up to his veins and just powers by his own imagination.
but
And he takes it out.
so Tetsuo had killed one of their friends earlier at a bar, which I want to say was interestingly one of the few off-screen deaths, which kind of
Yeah,
made
it played off really
which
well. and I
kind of
really liked
made it more fucked up because you have no idea what he did to him. Which,
Right.
since it was personal, was probably way worse.
Which
than
is the
anything he did.
power of cinema. Like what
Yeah.
you don't show and imply shows how powerful cinema is. And the idea that it's totally subjective. Like you can take your ideas and find a way to just give it whatever you want it to mean. And then you catch up with it.
But
Yeah.
most other scenes of violence in that movie are directly put in front of you, and you see
It don't shy away. It gets right. It gets right close
it
on
shows all of the ugliness. But that is the one that they didn't bother showing. Except I think there was a scene with some guards.
I don't think there's significance to why it's that one. I just think it's interesting that there is one.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so because of that, Kaneda decides, look, I got to put him down. He's gone too far. So he goes.
That's the kind of list. Oh, because he kills a
Well,
friend of theirs.
really, he just wants
There's
to.
another gang member
yeah.
he takes out. like
Really,
one of
he
their
just
friends.
wants to confront him, but you can tell that he's willing to do that.
Yeah, now that he's killed his friend, it's like, all right, you've overstepped the bounds. Now I have to kill
Yeah.
you. So he goes there to kill him. He has a fight. He's got a laser gun. Tetsuo has incredible psychic powers. They both kind of take it easy on each other because you can tell neither of them really want to do it, but they are still kind of trying.
Is this the second climax
then-
or the third climax?
This is the second. And so the Colonel calls in an attack from Saul, which is a
the
gigantic satellite laser.
SOL.
Oh, that part is so cool.
It's so cool.
So it starts blasting the shit out of him, and it blasts Tetsuo's arm
It
right off.
cuts his arm off,
Just
y'all.
straight off.
and he's fine.
He
I mean,
carries
no,
it.
he's not happy about it, but
he's fine.
But,
he
he manages.
he creates a metal arm in place of it.
I'll put it this
It's like
way. I'll put it
organic
this way.
too.
He's
Yeah.
he's
Oh,
handling
it's
it better. He's handling it better than I would.
Yeah.
So then he goes and takes down the satellite by flying into space and just blowing it up from the inside.
Like Superman. It was
So
really
it-
cool.
So it starts like shooting everywhere.
he
and
Superman's the
it almost kills
satellite.
Kaneda.
Yeah, that's the thing. When he takes it out, just like, because it's like this, so much energy from such like high atmosphere that it has to send energy down to one spot and then concentrate it into the center of that. And then there's so much energy in one spot, it shoots like a beam
Yeah,
of energy or light or something else to destroy it.
pretty friggin' cool scene. Anyway, it was that scene when the blue beam surrounded them and starts shrinking was like it was one of the.
It's
coolest
weird because
parts.
you know evil is coming within a
But you
3-second time.
but you have
and
no
you gotta
idea.
bail, and you don't know if you can bail, if it's good enough. Because it's a satellite, dude.
Yeah.
This may be for show. You don't know how it's going to do. You don't know how much of it's going to destroy.
So basically, both of them are forced to flee the scene. Tetsuo goes to the stadium and sits on a stone throne surrounded by pieces of Akira.
Well, at this
because-
point in the anime,
because
it's
he's
2 hours.
He draws in like all the metal beams and that goes into the Sentinels.
Well, here's the deal. It's an anime, and it's 2 hours in. And legally...
Just the look Aaron's giving me.
Yes. Well, you're holding your hands out like you're, a couple high fives.
No, I was Magneto.
You're doing it good.
Don't judge me.
I'm not judging. I'm commenting.
So
Anyway,
Kaori
here's the
shows
deal.
up.
I was gonna say, so with the throne, you're 2 hours into an anime at this point, and legally all animes had to have like this messianic figure fully established narratively by this point.
Yeah, Tommy's got to be like having his camp or something.
Yeah, it's gotta be ridiculous at this point. Like in Metropolis, that little girl robot has to be like
Oh god,
be
that was so
the
beautiful.
machine.
And his
at this
child
point.
molesting uncle has to be like a counselor or something.
It's just
Not
like-
really
like-
sure what's
like-
going on there.
It's just everything's got to be like so archetypey,
Yeah.
big and broad, and not broad, but like big in scope and just mythological at this point. There's always like some sort of weird messianic figure. Not always
Yep.
a protagonist, but always some
'cause-
ultimate being.
Yeah, I never bought Tetsuo as the protagonist.
No. But there's by this time
I never trusted
by
it.
this point in anime films, there's always like
Yeah.
this big, giant, all powerful being that people have to deal with.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we really need to see Princess Mononoke.
Well, I mean, Prince Mononoke is like the other two we just watched.
Apparently,
like,
Ghost in the
like-
Shell is a big deal too.
I could never get into it, but I understand why people do.
I heard Samurai 7 was something to pay attention to.
So are we through just like the big stadium fight? That's
No,
that's
we're
where we
going to
are.
start at the big stadium tonight.
Yeah, so he's at the stadium. Kaori shows up. He ain't doing too well. Kaneda shows up after recharging the laser gun with his bike, and so it's
Akira.
it's time for things to be done. So he tries to fight him again. He's got his bike and he's got a laser gun, and it's pretty cool, and things are going pretty interesting.
It is all very objectively cool.
And then things go very left field very fast.
Well, how so, Aaron?
Well, Tetsuo gets shot in his metal arm, and it creates a kind of
Pus.
I mean, it couldn't possibly be as weird as that episode of South Park where Cartman fuses with his Trapper Keeper cutting.
it's
Yeah,
about
Trapper
it's
Keeper.
that well that's
We,
obviously where they
well,
got it from. I'm glad you got that reference.
Yeah.
So there's
Wait, so South Park
there's a
ripped off that Akira?
psychophysical reaction where his body can no longer handle the psychic power and starts to transform into an all-consuming amoeba body horror baby monster.
Real Cronenberg shit.
Yeah.
And
Like the Star Child from 2001 crashed into space and just like fusing with all things that are unholy.
The dominoes.
It begins to grow using the unstoppable force of whatever cosmic energy is fueling his psychic power to begin with. And so it's going to consume basically everything on the planet and possibly who knows how far. So things are going very badly. Kaneda is sucked up into the body.
Good. Doesn't look good.
Kaneda is sucked up into the body.
As is K.
K is like...
No, K
Or
is
it
is Cowrie.
Yeah, it's Cowrie.
Cowrie is sucked into the body. Cowrie...
She explodes in blood. I feel like the best verb to use for that was blustered.
The worst part about that scene
sense?
is as
Blustered?
How much time did you spend on Merriam-Webster.com?
I did. I just came up with that. Blustered.
So
yeah, no one believes that.
The worst part about that is immediately before that
I don't believe
happens,
the truth.
Tetsuo sends Kaneda a mental message saying he feels her, he feels her pain, so he can actually feel as her body is being crushed inside of him when he can't stop it. And then she explodes into blood.
Yeah, and at this point, Tetsuo is losing control of his body.
So Kaneda pulls the trigger on his laser gun.
Shoots his way out of there like a badass.
He Beowulfs his way out of that
Beowulf
situation.
I dare say he Americans his way out.
In a mighty kasploosh. And...
That's
like
okay,
Drax in a big unnecessary set piece to start up the second Guardians movie. He just fights his way out.
I call band name the Mighty... What was it?
Mighty Kasploosh.
Mighty Kasploosh. I call band name.
Mighty Kasploosh?
Mighty
just
Kasploosh.
sounds like the Mighty Boosh.
So...
It's a cover... It's a tribute band for all the songs from Mighty Boosh.
So
I would be into that.
Yeah, you would.
The Espers who are watching from a short distance, they are like, well, this is unacceptable. So they teleport down to right in front of where Akira's organs are, and they use their psychic powers in unison to resurrect him into a single form.
And he's just a boy.
He's just a little boy.
He's just a little boy.
And he says, hey, what's up? I'm Akira.
I just got here. What's going on?
And then he immediately creates a singularity that absorbs everything around him in like a 10-mile radius.
It's like, okay, so this is where, I don't know what the manga did to explain this, but basically the backstory that no one's talking about because no one has a fucking clue of how it worked out is that there was these 4 kids and they were tested and monitored either because of natural psychic abilities or drug-induced psychic abilities.
Yes, and both.
Basically, the end result of that is Akira attuning so much into his psychic powers that he has ultimate energy and thus creates that imitation of a nuclear reaction in 1988 in Tokyo. This is what's left of him. And the government for 30 years has
that is totally what that was. Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what happened.
That's
so it's
definitely
just,
what that was.
So
it's experiment gone wrong that after 30 years, myth has taken over in a vast amount of ways.
So really quickly, though, the Espers had teleported the Colonel and K outside of the radius of destruction, but Kaneda did not get out. He gets absorbed into the singularity where he is then introduced to the minds, the unbridled minds.
He went into the monolith.
Actually, the Espers go in there after him to save his life, even knowing they're never going to get out. But using their combined psychic energy, they can save him.
Luckily, they give us all a big exposition dump to explain to us how that.
So they show
how that
we
works.
make jokes, but really, I needed that at that point.
So they show the history of the Espers and like what happened and how they were like drugged and tested in this place until suddenly the powers of Akira became like way too strong and it went out of control in a similar way of Tetsuo's, except it just turned into pure energy, probably because more of his mental state than anything else, because he was a kid and not like this screwed up teenager that had only lived a life of violence and oppression. So that probably had a little bit to do with it. But
you think?
So Kaneda gets to see Tetsuo's memories, and he sees for the first time that Tetsuo always viewed, even when he protected him as a little kid, as inferior. He felt himself inferior. And then that mentality of feeling inferior your entire life transformed him into the monster that he became once he was given power.
Yeah.
And that that is why everything happened.
That's how that story went.
And then the Espers used their psychic powers.
A seemingly powerless person given power, and the power immediately going corrupt.
Yeah. So the Espers used their combined psychic power to send Kaneda outside of the radius with Kay, where he drives off on his bike.
The bike is fine. Everyone, the bike's fine.
It's kind of fine. It's a
little fucked up, but they can fix it.
And then,
but Akira, the bike is fine.
The front wheel's shaking something out of control. Like
but they can fix it.
So doesn't look good.
It's still there. You can't say that for Tetsuo.
But Kaneda is still on the bike, just like doop 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 doop.
So what happens at the very end? What happens at the very end, which I know you did not get this from the first viewing. Akira sends Tetsuo to a alternate universe, essentially creating it.
How am I supposed to get that from the first viewing?
Tetsuo then becomes the god of that universe. And that's the end. That's how.
Is that from the manga?
It's
not really in the movie.
Yes,
dude.
that is the official interpretation of the movie and the manga.
Then we got to John.
That's why the last thing you see is like this sudden like shining light, and then he says, "I am Tetsuo." So it's like, I am. He's creating his own universe.
I am Tetsuo.
Yeah,
I am the knight.
Basically, Akira creates a universe for Tetsuo to live in because he can't live in ours.
And then Tetsuo creates life.
Well, he creates the universe. Who knows what he's going to do with it? He's not
probably life.
He'd be a very interesting god, that's for sure. But yeah, that is the ending of the movie.
Wow.
I think. Wow. And by the way, none of that's in the movie. You just told us that. See, you did your research. Thank God you're here. Thank God I'm glad we had an Akira expert on this.
And that brings me to my biggest criticism of the movie, because I largely enjoyed most of it.
I did too.
At the end of the day, it's a hard recommend. Like, watch it if you haven't. And if you've gotten this far into this podcast and you haven't watched it, then
what are you doing here?
But anyways, don't listen to us. We're stupid. Thanks for listening. But anyways, my biggest criticism with the movie is that, like, I feel like it gets to a point where if it were to end right here, it would feel very complete and very satisfying, and like stuff is relatively wrapped up and all that. But then the movie keeps going for about like another 20, 25 minutes.
So your argument is it pulls like a Return of the King, where there's like multiple endings?
Well, like
to wrap everything up.
Well, it kind of does do that because it's 5 movies going on,
and it does wrap everything up.
And like there are parts of it where like there are parts of it towards the end where you're just like, oh yeah, I remember when this was like a motorcycle gang movie.
Yeah. Oh, this was like
I remember that
movie. This was
so it goes through that gauntlet. But no, it's pretty much after the big fight scene at the stadium. Like I feel like that's like you could go out on that note, and you have a strong movie. But there's more that goes into that. Like I know that the guy who directed it and the guy who wrote the screenplay is the guy that made the manga. So like that's a whole other conversation in and of itself. But the comparison that I make like right away is to Clockwork Orange. Like Stanley Kubrick made the movie Clockwork Orange based on the Anthony Burgess book Clockwork Orange. And Stanley Kubrick made a really good movie, but he chose to end his movie right there because he felt like that was the natural end for the movie that he was making. There's another chapter of that book that he didn't make.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have made much sense with the movie that he made if he did make it.
What was it?
The movie is stronger because he ends it there.
Yeah.
It's pretty much Alex goes back to gang life and realizes that he's outgrown gang life. That's essentially what happens, but it happens over about like 15 pages or so. It's just like it's a 7-part book. The movie that you get documents the first 6 parts. And if it weren't for the fact that it was the guy that wrote the manga that was directing it, like that changes the approach entirely. Like God knows, like nobody gets to make the movie that's based on the thing that's adapting the thing that they made.
Yeah, that should not have happened.
No one gets to do that.
Nobody.
But like, but the reason that I bring up A Clockwork Orange is just because like I feel like he could have made a stronger movie if he had filled in more gaps earlier on in the story and ended at that more succinct spot at the end of the stadium fight.
It'd be a more solid movie.
It wouldn't have covered like all of Akira, but it would have been a better movie. But he still made a good movie. I mean, like it's
still good.
It's quite
We're
a fucking
talking about
ride.
it.
It's quite a fucking ride.
I know what you mean though. Like just to kind of like streamline more of like some of the more basic ideas.
Yeah,
and
that's
to
just
the point.
It's
You leave a lot of stuff out. But
it's
because
mean
you
and
never
that's
deal
it's mean
with,
nitpicking is what it
Yeah.
is. But
Well, it's not a bad point. It makes sense. Like if you can make a more streamlined movie about one thing that's still substantial and respects the world that it came from, you can leave out all the more broad aspects that a movie cannot handle.
And it's considering all the lore that like that they're leaving out. Like I feel like they could have included other lore to fill out this world more, to tell a stronger, more cohesive story, more to the point story. But I mean, like I don't know how many. Like, do you happen to know how many books Akira is?
Oh gosh, I think
It's
it's
like 4 collections total.
Like Transmetropolitan.
I think it's like 6, and they're
6?
that thick.
Yeah, because like
and,
Transmetropolitan
like,
is like 10 books,
like-
and they're all
like,
like
they're
6 issues.
it's
Well, like
insanely long.
the
It's
book,
insanely
If it's
the
anything
book
like
that this
that,
movie
yeah.
came from wasn't done when he made the movie.
Oh wow.
It wasn't like Walking Dead where you got so far ahead of everything to where like the TV show seasons.
And that's a whole nother conversation because like that.
Yeah,
guy,
yeah, and that
because that guy, he has no intention of ever ending The Walking Dead.
yeah, and Akira was very finite, I imagine.
Oh yeah.
Totally, but like, I want to make this point because you were on the verge of militant of making this point. We had to watch this the original Japanese subtitles.
Oh man, I can't believe it took us that long to mention that.
Yeah, you refuse. And there's two versions.
The original Japanese
subtitles.
voice recording with
recording.
English subtitles.
English subtitles.
That's the way that we watched
There
it.
are 2 versions.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I liked it. There were 2 versions overdubbed for English. One in the 90s, one about mid-aughts. I don't know which one you decried, but you definitely said it loses something when it does that. It's not like a kung fu movie. It's not 36 chambers of Shaolin.
I mean,
where
like
you enjoy the dubbing.
like none of us speak Japanese, but but emotion translates, and the emotion and the voice acting is there.
Aaron had a good reason for why we had to watch it in Japanese.
Yeah, I refuse to watch any anime that's subtitled or that's dubbed for specifically the reason that the director decides on the voice acting end result. And anytime you take that away from the original director, you are changing so much.
Yeah.
You're changing that character.
It's rare, if not downright impossible, for the original director of the anime to even
be able
of the
to
American translation.
They
just kind of find out it happens.
They got some high quality actors to do the voice acting for Princess Mononoke. There's Billy Bob Thornton. There's I'm gonna forget her name, Jada Pinkett Smith, I think. And it's garbage. Like I don't know how to say it. They're like it changes the characters.
You were like, well,
entirely.
just the delivery's off.
It changes the characters. It changes your perception of the characters. It changes your perception of like it changes the tone.
Well, you're hearing a different interpretation, and that's not the interpretation of the original director, and that's what's important.
Exactly.
And I gotta say, like, I mean, I didn't think very much of it whenever you made that call, but like after watching the movie, it's the right call. The voice acting. The voice acting is strong. None of us speak Japanese, but like I said, emotion translates.
Yeah, and it works.
And the emotion's there.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like to be like, oh, you're such a stickler if you don't do dubbed, but I'm sorry. I've done dubbed before, and I can't stand it. Like once you see,
Well, those
once you see
people
it,
have no place on the internet. Let me tell you that.
oh, you are gonna get
As we know anything
so
about the
many
internet,
bad comments.
People, if they don't, if
Oh,
they're
come
not a
on.
well-informed argument, they'll
Prepare-
back off.
People,
to be-
hey, come on. People aren't going to at me. No one has that kind of
You're-
free time.
You are gonna get weeaboo trashed so hard now, like just by association. I know I'm gonna
Yeah.
get weeaboo trashed. I don't care. I love this movie.
Well, bring it on.
So I will say I get where you're coming from with the ending of this movie. I absolutely get where you're coming from, and I understand
It gets really wild.
it takes it a step further than it maybe necessarily needed to be, but this is the way I feel about it because after watching a whole lot of anime and seeing like how they like to culminate stories, what usually happens there is a extreme climactic scene. And then there's the final loss. Because Japanese stories post World War II are often not necessarily comedies or tragedies or, straightforward dramas or whatever.
Right.
They are very mixed elements, and there is always a final loss scene. And that's what the stadium scene was. It's the final loss. It's the big explosion.
So it's like they took it from
It's-
all the manga and they wanted the beats of the big stuff.
Well,
And they put that in there and then retroactively add as much as they probably needed to.
there's
Maybe.
a lot of the best animes have a big explosion ending because
Does
there's
Michael Bay make anime?
it's because of
Michael
this,
Anna Bay.
and it's not even an
outta
explosion.
here.
It's
You
not
need
even
to leave your own house. You get the hell out of here, sir.
Oh, man.
It's not even an
do
explosion.
deserve that.
Paprika almost did it backwards. Like it was an inversion of the gigantic explosion thing in Paprika. But like all of the best animes, Metropolis, Princess Mononoke, Akira, obviously, they end in gigantic explosive events that are meant to represent the idea that it doesn't matter how much the good side tries or how much the bad side tries, there will be a force of nature greater than us that will equalize the situation and stop the conflict. And we have no control over that force of nature. That is the essential message. It doesn't matter. The drama in between doesn't matter because at the end of the day, that all-consuming force of nature is going to end it for us.
America, fuck yeah. Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah. America, fuck yeah.
And May is the only way.
That's
Tetsuya, your day
Was it
is
too
through.
soon?
it's not. It's
Was
not.
that too soon?
And it's
Soon?
It was probably too
It's
soon.
not a
It's
kind of-
always going to be too soon.
it's not a kind of storytelling
But-
we're accustomed to, and that's why I get like
No, man. I get it.
I appreciate that though because like the tropes of storytelling in Western civilization go back thousands of years. However, in a cinematic format, date back I would say 120 years. It's nice to even for the 80s to change it up because it fluctuates how you tell stories, and if it just messes it, if you get a good story that the execution of it is just messed up enough, we'll talk about it for the rest of our lives. And I feel like Akira accomplishes that.
Yeah, I mean, like Akira is a cult property for a reason.
Yeah,
it has
connects
a
people.
following.
Yeah, it taps into what everyone thought from then till now
Yeah.
about a lot of different issues.
And I mean, there's plenty of things. I mean, it's like a lot of these themes are very specific to like post World War II Japanese culture, like we've said. But I mean, there's plenty of things that like even from a Western perspective, we can relate to.
yes.
Once again, I feel like the idea of the post World War II Japan is like the launching point, but the result they get to, not just over the course of the movie, but the course of like that time of culture where it's most relevant. The point we end up at is not where you think we're at. You know, no one saw different. Usually, you're like where you end up at a journey is not even close to what you think about it. Even if you have a well-intentioned journey, like at some point, the Lord of the Rings, they just thought they were going to Mordor. to throw that fucking ring in, and that's it.
You can't simply.
Do you know how much of those people like didn't even make it to Mordor, but that's the end of their journey because of the scope of the mission they have?
So was it like a caravan marching to Mordor?
Well,
It was a huge national emergency at the port of Mordor.
according to the book, Aragorn actually wasn't planning on going there. He was going to let Gandalf take him the rest of the way. He was always going to go to Minas Tirith. It says it in the book.
Okay, I guess I read it. But the point I'm trying to make is...
Did you know that Akira was at the bottom of that lake of lava?
Damn, shut the fuck up.
Do you know Akira is Japanese for Galadriel?
Did you know that Akira was really inside all of us all along?
But, okay, but one thing I want to say about the fact of what we have here in a movie made in 1988, in just the way and the concepts behind it is... Anime has always been a combination of Western and traditional Japanese styles. From its very orientation, it actually, like, in pre-war Japan, they were really into Disney. And
Disney and Westerns, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
the Westerns.
And they liked Westerns because they were very much like samurai stories.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a romanticization of a lost past that was actually way more ugly and disgusting than it ended up being depicted as.
So that's where American cinema captures up with Japan.
You mean a culture romanticized in elements of its past?
But
no one's ever done that before.
It was done in the same way because there was a similar time period in which like the country was at a place where like it was very Wild West-ish, but in the ugliest way.
Wicked Wild Wild?
But in an ugly
Wild
way.
West.
So they romanticized it in order to like capture that. But they were also really into Disney. And so they
I've created
they
a
took
monster.
those they
Desperado.
took shut the fuck up.
Rough Rider.
They
No,
took
you don't
traditional
want
they took traditional Japanese art styles
Buffalo soldier look. It's like I told you.
and they combined it with Disney to create a new kind of art style that's really blew up in like the 60s.
I can see that. I can see that style of animation be heavily Disney influenced. Early Disney, like Snow White.
Yeah.
Oh,
the big eyes and everything.
The big eyes and the gloves and
I
everything.
don't know. I was just waiting for the movie to get down to business to defeat the Huns.
But once they hit the
again,
80s, once they hit the 80s, it became its whole other animal.
That's a long time of growth, man.
Exactly.
Growth, so that makes sense.
Exactly. It's got a long and weird history, and I think it's interesting to see where this movie fits in that time of history where it was really taking on its own beast and becoming something new.
Well, I feel like the argument could be made that there's pre-Akira and post-Akira.
I think that a lot of that sums up how I feel about the movie. It's a pretty strong recommend.
Highly recommend. Take the time out to give it attention.
Yeah.
Don't try and squeeze it in. It's an important movie.
It gets out there towards the end, I've said, like
Take an intermission after the bridge scene.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe after the hospital scene.
We took 2 breaks.
No, we took a break after the hospital
we really
scene,
just
and
took
then we
one
jumped right
break.
back into it.
We really just took one
I'm
break.
impressed with us for only doing 1 break.
Yeah.
Like usually we take,
and
like,
it's really not.
When me, Asher, and Grace did Bird Box, that was like 5 breaks.
But
Wow.
as soon as he leaves the hospital, take a break there, give yourself 10 minutes, get back into it.
And there's a bit of a time jump there too, so it kind of works.
Yeah, that does help.
But I really, really enjoyed the movie. It gives you, it has a lot to say. It gives you a lot to think about.
Highly recommended.
Not just for anime fans, like because I am not a
I
like
don't-
anime.
I'm
Anime
not
is a
really into
thing.
anime
Yeah,
at all.
I don't have strong feelings for or against anime. It's just a thing that exists.
Usually when you meet people who like anime, it's a very strong opinion of anime.
And some people strongly dislike anime. It exists. Some of it's really good. Sure, like this was really good. I
if
really
there's more
enjoyed
stuff like
this.
this, I'll pay more attention to anime.
But yeah, I'd say strong recommend. But it's funny saying that now because you've gotten to the end of this and you've never seen Akira.
They can tell their friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll get to the point where people tell their friends that we like it, and they're like, "Oh, well, if they like it."
Oh well, if those guys like it,
I trust their opinion. Why would
they sound educated.
Yeah.
They can enunciate into a microphone.
Cultural talking abouts.
Here, that's all of it. You get all of it right here, folks. But yeah, I think I'm good.
All right, y'all. But you tell us what you think. Do you dig Akira? Is it too much? Is it just enough? Do you want to fill in any gaps? Do you feel like the movie should have filled in any gaps for it? But let us know. Hit us up on the YouTubes.
Please let us know what parts of the manga should have made the movie.
Oh,
please
let
tell us
know.
all about that.
If I could read your comment and figure out what part of the manga I'm missing with having to read a manga, nothing against the manga. I'm just a busy guy with not a lot of time. But if you could let us know what you think, anything that should have been added, anything that should have been taken out, I would like to have that conversation with somebody. But hit us up on YouTube, all over the iTunes and the Google Play. Like, subscribe, comments. But for this episode of Movie Night Autopsy, I'm Chad.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Aaron.
Thank you for listening.
What's up, crew? If you got any idea of what you would like for us to talk about on the Minute or on Movie Night Autopsy podcast, hit us up on the social medias. You can hit us up on Twitter at movie_autopsy. Check us out on Facebook at Movie Night Autopsy. Always feel free to email us, contact@movienightautopsy.com.